Kavi Santokh Singh was not able to find all parts of history. There were some certain areas which he could not find. One day, a Singh came to his house and stayed the night. Santokh Singh fed him, provided a lot of love for him. When that Singh left the next morning, Santokh Singh finds a bag that was left behind that Singh with a lot of text, a lot of parchiyan, like letters. That was the information he needed. And he quotes this in his text. I found, surprisingly, a sancha, a collection of different parchiyan, different letters that contained all the history of the Gurus. कहाँ बुद्ध प्रभ तुच्छ हमारी वर्ण सकै महिमा जो तिहारी हम ना सकत कर सिफत तुम्हारी आप ले हो तुम कथा सुधारी वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. I was thinking originally that we'll just cover up basics of every Samparda. I was thinking about 4 main ones, and I was thinking, okay, you know what, we'll just cover these 4 and we'll go on with it. And I started researching, started studying, and when I opened up one Samparda, it was like a can of worms. It just opened up to another, led to another thing, led to another thing. And I realized there's no way you can cover in detail about all the Sampardas in one talk. So what we're going to do is going to leave this presentation to one Samparda. Okay, we're going to talk about what Samparda is. We're talking about just one community for this presentation. Okay, so what is a Samparda? This is a typical definition you'll find in the Sanskrit Granth, because it is a Sanskrit word. So the translation is Sammik Pradaya iti Samparda. Sammik means changi tarah, which means very well. Pradaya means dena. Iti means equals, and Sampradaya means Sampradaya. What that means is Sampradaya is passing down from one generation to another generation certain type of information, and that gets passed down through time. So I call this type, I named the talk Lineages of Time. Yeah. So it's a lineage, but to create a Sampradaya, it takes time to create the Sampradaya. So the Sampradaya we're talking about today is called Giania Samarda. Okay, you might heard someone called Giani, right? Giani, Harjeet Singh, Giani, anyone, right? There's a tradition to the Gianis that we're going to be exploring today. We're going to be looking at the roots, the foundation, going into how the tradition was then finalized and how we see that tradition being used today. So to begin this talk, we first need to look at Anandpur Sahib. This is back in 1680s, and what we see in history is that Guru Gobind Singh Ji writes out letters calling for the scholars of all of India and nearby countries to come to Anandpur Sahib, right? Effectively, Guru Sahib is creating a Darbar. They're creating a school, institution, where all the Vidwans from all over are coming in, not necessarily from one type of faith. What I want to stress throughout this topic is that see the way you see Sikhi and question yourself while we go through the history. So Guru Sahib sends out these letters. We have historical reference in Bhai Supreet Singh's Rahatname which talk about this. When the Vidwans, the scholars come from different traditions, different backgrounds, they come to Anandpur Sahib. Guru Sahib has them commissioned and they do different type of works. Okay, what type of work do? They translate different scriptures, different texts from different backgrounds. None of them have much to do with the word Sikh. That's something interesting. A lot of the texts come from different backgrounds, from Sufi traditions, from Sanskrit traditions, from different languages, Arabi, Farsi, Pashto, Sanskrit. And Guru Sahib has them all translated into one script, which is the Gurmukhi Lipi. You can see that Lipi on the left side. Lipi means style of writing. So this is the Gurmukhi Lipi. So Guru Sahib has all those texts translated into that one Lipi, and the language they use is called Braj, which is, you can say, Western Hindi. It's a very simple language to learn. A lot of scholars back then, poets, would use that language. Okay, So here I have some examples from different texts that were written. Up there we see a section of the Mahabharata that was translated in 1696. So this is Anandpur Sahib. And within that translation, the Kavi meaning the poet whose name is Mangal here, they write down this quote here, which I put here, to reference where they are, what they're doing. They're saying Anand ko Data Guru Sahib Gobind Rai, that the giver of bliss, the Guru Gobind Rai. Chahe so Anand to Anandpur aiye. If you wish to receive this bliss, come to Anandpur Sahib. And again, these Kavis are not necessarily from the Sikh tradition. They could be from backgrounds of different faiths. Then on the bottom you have another Kavi who is translating a different section of the Mahabharata. He says, Dron Parpat Pakha Kiyo Guru Gobind Sujan Kahyo Kuvav Sukav Kovresh Ko Diye Kurorundan. He says that I translated this chapter in the Sabha, in the court of the Guru, and I've been blessed with millions. As in, the Gurus have paid these guys a lot of money. This is just a picture of Anandpur Sahib from the 1865, provided by the Digital Library of Punjab. So some more historical mentions. This is by Kavi Santokh. This is a very famous Kavi, very famous historian as well. He translated a few different texts, but one in particular we have today is Chanakya Rajniti. And within the Giania tradition, this text is taught as well. It's a text about socio-political methods. Chanakya was someone who was the Rajguru of Chandramaurya Gupta in the 2nd century of India. And his text was available only in Sanskrit. Guru Sahib had it translated. And at the end of his text, he writes this, Guru Gobind ki sabha mein hai lekhak param sujan. I'm sitting in the sabha, the Darbar of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and there's many scholars here. Chanaka Pakha Kiyo Kav Sanapat. My name is Sanapat. I have done the Pakha. Pakha means translation of this text called Chanaka Rajniti. Some more historical references here. So from the Kavi Darbar, so that's the name that was given to that time period, Kavi Darbar. You might have heard this word before, thrown at it. What I wanted to do with this presentation was to kind of give you eyesight into the historical text. Not just tell you and you take it by face value, but so you can actually see the history that we have still maintained till today. It's just not much research is done on it. Not many people are looking into it, but it's there. Okay? Have you ever heard of the Masnavi? Masnavi is written by who? Anyone know? So Sufi guy, really important Sufi guy. I'll tell you in a minute. So the Masnavi is hailed as the Persian Quran. Like it's that important to the Islamic traditions. The Masnavi is translated in the Guru's Darbar. Okay, here's a physical photograph of the Masnavi translation. And what's interesting is that every translation will start with the Mangal. Yeah, every translation is labeled, and that Mangal signifies where this translation is taking place. Yeah? It's almost as if, what comes to my mind is that, have you ever heard of this Norwegian island that holds a bunch of seeds? It's all like a seed vault, a seed bank. Have you ever heard of that? So there's like this seed bank on like an offshore Norwegian island. And the idea behind that is that if the whole world was to be destroyed, they have all the seeds there in that vault. So they can restart creation one more time. They can restart vegetation one more time. So plants and food and all these things can be available to the human population, whatever that population is. I feel like Guru Sahib is creating a vault of knowledge, right? Different, and it's not limited to just one sphere. Yeah? When we say Sikh is universal, it's really shown here that the Sikh faith is very universal. There's no door that's closed to anyone. Yeah? Everyone's allowed in, and from their knowledge, you can extract the spiritual wisdom behind it. Okay, this is just another picture of another manuscript that's translated in Guru Sahib's Darbar. And this one is going to be really important. We're going to come back to this in just a second. But this one is associated to Bhai Mani Singh. Okay, so there were various different subjects that were worked on in Guru Sahib's Darbar, ranging from medicine to spirituality to dictionaries to mythology. Some things like we mentioned already, the Mahabharata. Some things like Chanakya Rajniti we mentioned as well. The Amar Kosh was a really big one. The Upanishads, the Masnavi, which is by Rumi. So this was the roots of the Giani Samparda. Okay, all this kind of finalizes to one person, one or two people we see in history. The person we're going to focus on today is Bhai Mani Singh. Okay, Bhai Mani Singh is a very key character in the Sikh history, who gave their Shahidi during a time period which kind of initiated much more for the Sikh to go through in the 18th century. So Bhai Mani Singh Ji is hailed as a divan of that court. So that Kavi Darbar, that court of poets, out of those court of poets, we see the number about 52 come up within our history. Pyara Singh Padam actually has a book called the Darbari Ratan. In that book, you can actually see all the names of the different poets come up in that book, and a little bit of their history as well comes in there as well. Bhai Mani Singh Ji is hailed as a divan. The divan means the head of that court. Yeah? So Bhai Mani Singh Ji starts to, when Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj becomes Jyot, Bhai Mani Singh Ji is that facilitator that carries out much Guru-like things. Meaning what the Guru would do, Bhai Mani Singh Ji is doing that for the Sangat. They're getting the Sangat together, they're creating programs, they're releasing hukamname with the advice of the two Matama, Mata Sahideva and Mata Sundarji. And they release hukamname which we still have today. Professor Ganda Singh has actually they have a text called hukamname. You can look and see those hukamname still today. So the Giani Samparda is not formalized at this point. Bhai Mani Singh Ji is given the duty of taking the teachings given by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, which are released in the form of Katha, and that teachings are history related, Gurbani related, reading and writing Gurbani, the theology of Sikhi. All these things are passed down to Bhai Mani Singh. What happens is that when this system of Gyanis is actually formalized, it will take a place in the heart of all of our institutions, the Darbar Sahib. The Darbar Sahib used to have a complex like this. If you look at the picture on the left side, you see there's numbers all around Darbar Sahib. What those numbers are indicating are different buildings that actually were in the Prakarma of Darbar Sahib, which are not there today. Those buildings were all schools, different schools, schools teaching medicine, schools teaching surgery, Sangeet, music, and the Giania Bunga, which was believed to be somewhere around here. Yeah. Some scholars believe it's this one right here, number 47. Some people believe that this was the Giania Bunga. This was the institution where people came and learned all there was about history, Gurbani Vidya, theology, and the philosophy of Gurmat. And again, these aren't there anymore. When the SGPC, they wanted to clear up the Prakarma. The Prakarma means just the complex around the Darbar Sahib, which is the place in the middle. When they went to clean it up, then these buildings were first to go. Okay, here's a picture from the 1836 showing these buildings. You can see the Darbar is very crowded almost. It's crowded, there's a lot going on here. And you can see right in the middle there's someone sitting there with the Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And all around, you can see things going on. A lot of vegetation as well. If you look in the top left corner there, you can see there's two people sitting there. And this is the tradition of the Giani Samparda. How it works is that there's two people. There's a teacher and there's a student. Yeah, the teacher is called the Ustad, which is a Farsi word, a Persian word. And the student is called Vidyarthi. And they interact in this way where the Ustad passes down whatever class he's teaching and the Vidyarthi listens and learns. So it looks like that's what the artist is depicting over there in that corner. Okay, so we were talking about Bhai Mani Singh. Bhai Mani Singh Ji then passes down their knowledge that they learned from the Guru to someone named Bhai Guru Baksh Singh. Okay, we have a historical reference for this given by Sant Nihal Singh. Mani Singh Kirpa Kar Such Sevak Nij Jaan Sri Guru Baksh Mrgesh Ko Arth Padhaye Man. And this language that you hear right now is Braj. This is the language of Braj. And this is what, if you pick up any book from the 19th century, the 18th century, any Sikh historical book, any text, it'll be written in this language. Yeah. How did that language change to Punjabi and become more socialized? We'll talk about that as well. But I want you to pay attention to this, that Bhai Mani Singh Ji gives her teachings to someone named Bhai Guru Baksh Singh. They recognize Bhai Guru Baksh Singh to have those qualities. And if you look at the image that Bhai Guru Baksh Singh is carrying, the type of outfit they're wearing, this represents a certain tradition which we know as the Nihang Singhs. So it's very interesting. I want you to just keep that in mind as we talk about the formalization of the Giani Samarda. Eventually, Guru Baksh Singh passes on this knowledge to someone named Bhai Supreet Singh. Bhai Supreet Singh this is where the word Giani is first introduced. So again from Sant Nihal Singh, Tinko Supreet Singh Ji Pade. I haven't included the translation. So the translation you're seeing on the screen, they don't actually exist. I just translated them here for you guys because a lot of these texts are not even published. So a lot of these texts have not been published. This was provided by the Bhai Gurdas Ji's society, by Jeevan Singh, who's working. So there's certain scholars now today that are focusing on reviving our past. Yeah? And what's crazy is that we're living in the same time period as them. They're our age. They're people that just got out of college, maybe they're bringing this to light, something that has not been come to light for years, hundreds of years. And I would say the past 100 years is where we had the darkest period in terms of knowledge. So I haven't provided translations, it's just a lack of space. But Tinko Supreet Singh Ji Pade, from Bhai Guru Baksh Singh comes someone named Supreet Singh, Preet Atatar, who had a lot of love for learning. Giani Sangya Jagat Mein Vidat Bhai So Apar. From there, the tradition of Gianis was started. Ruchar Katha Visthar Granth Sahib Ki Karehi. He did a lot of Katha in Visthar. Visthar means in great detail, the Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Sikh Sangat Nit Sahas Sarvan Kar Man Mud Parehi. In the hundreds, Sikh Sangat will come to listen to this person. Pun Samparda Tinko Chaleo. From him, this Sampradaya has been started. Jag mein Giani naam hua. And the name was coined Giani. Yeah. So you can see the root was the Anandpur Darbar, coming down to Bhai Mani Singh, coming down to someone named Bhai Guru Baksh Singh, and then when it reaches Bhai Supreet Singh, whose birth is estimated around 1719, and they pass away right before Maharaja Ranjit Singh takes over the Sikh Raj, which we call in 1799. We can see that the word Giani has now been coined. Sabapu Upapoja Guru Roop Kar Mukat Roop Abhiram Hua. And all the people, the leaders of that time, the kings of that time, used to respect him with the honor as if he was the Guru. He was such an important figure in the history of Sikhi. Okay, now this is where it starts to get condensed down. From Bhai Supreet Singh, we've now reached an area where in Punjab, the missal period has now ended. And for anyone that does not know, I'll just give you a brief introduction to the history of Punjab at this time. Okay, so from 1708 to 1799, this is called the missal period. Missal period is when Sikhs were trying to fight for their own space, for their own territory, and for their own rule, essentially. At 1799, someone named Maharaja Ranjit Singh steps up. Right? We all heard his names before, right? Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Ranjit Singh comes at a very young age, and he's able to, by conquest and by other methods, take over the different missals. Yeah? He takes over, and all the missals are Sikh missals, by the way. He takes over all the missals, combines them as much as he can in 1799, and that's when the establishment of Sikh Raj happens in Punjab. And Punjab, as we know it today, is just one part of Punjab. The part that we don't know about is Lenda Punjab, which is the western Punjab, which falls in Pakistan today. Yeah. So Lenda Punjab and Charda Punjab in total has 7 rivers. Yeah, we only know about Punjab, which means 5 rivers, and technically only 3 rivers are in the eastern side and 2 rivers are actually in Pakistan, which we don't know about. Back then, it expanded to 7 rivers all the way to the Sindh. So Punjab's geographical territory was really vast. So someone named Bhai Supreet Singh is born during the Missile era, and he gets appointed as the head Granthi of Darbar Sahib, right? When Maharaja Ranjit Singh takes power. Maharaja Ranjit Singh takes power in 1799, right? 1801, 1803, he takes over Amritsar. And he appoints Sant Singh as the Darbar Sahib Granthi. Yeah. So Sant Singh is now Darbar Sahib Granthi, and he's mentioned in history so much as such an amazing scholar. And not just amazing scholar, but amazing Bhagat as well. So here we have some references by one of his students. This is also Braj as well. The reason for me to include the historical references here is A, like I told you, so you can see the history for yourself. B, so you can have some exposure to the language that our texts are written in primarily. Sant Singh's katha or discourse is so strong that it was able to bring someone who was pule hoye. Pule hoye means that when someone's lost, right? When someone's lost, someone doesn't have any place to go. Where did they go to? They used to go to listen to katha. So katha was a very important part of our institutions that is not as important as we see it nowadays. Katha Sant Singh Ju ki mohe jiye jatan ko. They said that his katha gives me hope. Mantra hai ke tantra hai ke jantar hai ke jari hai. Is his katha some type of magic spell, or is it a jari booty? Is it medicine? I can't tell, his student is saying. So from this we also realize that in Darbar Sahib, Sant Singh used to do katha. So there used to be katha done in Darbar Sahib, and the head Granthi used to do that katha. On this picture here on the left side, you can see him sitting. It's a portrait of him sitting in the court of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. We'll see the full image as we go forward. And this is a text by quote by Ganesha Singh, which I put the translation up here. Among the Khatris of this place, Bhai Sant Singh was famous for the understanding of the Granth, referring to Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So the Guru Granth Sahib Ji was understood by the Granthi. Yeah, and if anyone had a question, for example, you see like Makaf or like, what's his name, Dr. Ernest Trump, when he comes to, and if you haven't heard these names before, it's okay. This is different people that were appointed by the British government to research what Sikhi is. Yeah. So Dr. Ernest Trump, when he wanted to know what Sikhi was, he went to the Granthis. He's like, tell me what your faith is about, and then they did their own research. So if you can see a picture here, that's Baba Atal Rai's Gurdwara in the back. And right in front of it, there's a small building there. That was a samad of Sant Singh Giani. Samad means a place of remembrance, to remember someone that passed away. So, and I have a digitally enhanced picture here. So right here, this building, you can see there was a samad that was dedicated in the remembrance and the memory of Sant Singh Giani. So showing how big and important figure he was in our history. This was also destroyed in the late 1900s. This is one of the doors that you will see when you enter Darbar Sahib. Darbar Sahib has 4 doors around the main Darbar, right? This is one of the doors. If you look into one of the doors, what it says there will be inscriptions on the doors, right? I want you to focus on this side right here. This, I typed it up for you guys. Ease of convenience. And this is what it says on top of that door. Seva Sri Guru Ramdas Ji ki Swaran ki Arasang Supaid ki. I'll translate that. The Seva of Guru Ramdas Ji, meaning the Darbar Sahib, of the gold, Swaran means gold, and the marble, which we see on Darbar Sahib today. But Pagi Jan ke Sri Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the Ranjit Singh Maharaja, the king of that time, recognized himself to be very blessed to do the seva. So karai marfat Sri Bhai Sant Singh Giani ji ki. Marfat means through the advice, through the guidance, through the supervision of Sant Singh Giani. Yeah. So Sant Singh was given 500,000 rupees and told, you're going to supervise this project. Yeah. In 1803, when Maharaja Ranjit Singh takes over takes over Amritsar, he gives this project to Sant Singh Giani, and he says that I'm going to give you this money. You figure out what to do with this money. You figure out how this project is going to be done. Sant Singh Giani then appoints, hires different type of workers to put the gold and the marble onto Harmandir Sahib that we see today. Besides this, Sant Singh has also written 2 commentaries. One is on the Tulsi Ramayana, and this quote is from another text that has not been published, Har Bhagat Prem Prakash. So it's written by someone who's contemporary to Sant Singh Giani. Contemporary means that it was living in the same time as Sant Singh. Their name is Bhai Sham Singh, Baba Sham Singh Ji. And they write in their text that Sant Singh writes a commentary on Tulsi Ramayana. Now, why is Sant Singh so important? We'll come to that one point one second. But this was the picture that I was trying to show you before. Sant Singh is sitting on the right side. Akali Baba Phula Singh, Hari Singh Nalwa, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and Sher Singh in that order. These are very prominent names that you might have heard before. Yeah. So this is a portrait of that time period, contemporary portrait of that time period, showing Sant Singh being royal in the sense that he was a royal Giani. Yeah? He was appointed by the government, and he not only took care of spiritual items, he also took care of political items as well. Why was Sant Singh so important? Sant Singh is so important because of his student. His student's name is Kavi Santokh Singh. Okay, how many of you heard this name before? Santokh Singh. Yeah. Okay, he seemed to be a very controversial figure nowadays. Yeah, unfortunately, but it wasn't always the case. The reason of us going through that whole lineage that you heard of, Mani Singh to Gurbaksh Singh to Sooraj Singh to Sant Singh, is to eventually trickle down to this point. Now the presentation will officially start. Yeah, that was just an introduction to who Kavi Santokh, the background to this person here. Okay, this is one of my favorite authors, and his texts are one of my favorite texts as well to do research on and to study. So Kavi Santokh Singh was a student of Sant Singh Giani. He learned from Sant Singh Ji for about 10 years. Yeah? And then he went off, and we're going to look at his life in just a moment. But he's hailed as the crown poet. Yeah. So if you hear in discourse nowadays by the Gianis, they'll call him Chudamani. Kavi Santokh Singh Chudamani. Chudamani means, this is a translation from the Mahan Kosh. This is an excerpt from the Mahan Kosh, which is a dictionary that a lot of scholars would use, which is written by Khan Singh Nampa. And in there it says Mukat. Mukat means a Taj. Taj means a crown. And Sir par pehnanda ratan. Ratan means jewel. A jewel that you wear on your head. Kavi Santokh Singh Ji is hailed as a jewel of poetry of that time. And even to today, scholars will hail to his works. Yeah? So we will see what he achieved and what we have of his till today. Okay, so this is a model illustration of Sant Singh Giani, the person we were just talking about earlier, the teacher of Santokh Singh, right? Kavi Santokh Singh Ji, in his own words, in a text called the Garam Ganjani, he does a dandot, a bandana to his teacher. He does satkar to his teacher, reverence to his teacher by saying this: Sri Mat Mur Gur Bhajan. My teacher, my guru is always in devotion. Daya Tam Abaram, he is the house of compassion and love. Tinke Pagna Pranam Hua, I bow down to his feet. Sant Singh Shubhanam, his name is Sant Singh. Yeah. So Kavi Santokh Singh Ji, in their own text, is referring back to their teacher. So where is Kavi Ji born? Kavi Ji takes birth in an area called Pind Sarai Nuruddin, which was then turned into Killa Santokh Singh. Now I'm going to talk about a very prominent scholar whose name is Bhai Veer Singh. How many people has heard of Bhai Veer Singh before? Bhai Veer Singh, very few. Okay, so when it comes to like Sikh history, we pick up a book on the shelf. Oftentimes, we won't be picking up Kavi Santokh Singh's book because the language is alien to us now. Remember the language talk about Braj? It's not something that a common person, Punjabi person, will understand anymore. The books we pick up for Sikh history today will be maybe by Veer Singh, Professor Sahib Singh, Professor Ganda Singh. These scholars write in Punjabi, and there is more of an easier language for us and read. And then that book will probably translate to English for us to like share with like kids at the Gurdwara or something. But where are they getting their knowledge from? Bhai Veer Singh is a devotee of Kavi Santokh Singh, you can say. He loves Kavi Santokh Singh. From his letters and his writings, you can pick that up. The books that we see today are just translations of Kavi Santokh Singh Ji's work. And the scholars themselves say that. They say in their own writings, I'm just translating what Kavi Santokh Singh Ji did. Yeah, because the history and the research that Kavi Santokh Singh had done, no one had done before that. Okay? And also because he was living in the Sikh Raj. Kavi Santokh Singh is someone who's born in Sikh Raj and dies in Sikh Raj as well. So he was able to experience a environment which allowed him to do the work he did. Okay? So this is a letter by Dr. Veer Singh, which was addressed to the Santokh Singh Yadgar Committee, which Bhai Veer Singh himself had orchestrated to create. Bhai Veer Singh helped create a community or a committee whose mission was to to preserve his memory. Okay, so this committee goes into the place where the Janamasthan, where Santokh Singh is born, and they create a Yadgari, or in the works of it, during the time when Bhai Veer Singh writes his letter, is dated as 1953, September 15. So he writes, Bhai Veer Singh writes the Mangal on top, and then he says, Pyare Jio, oh my loved ones. Aap da pattar te ishtihar puje han, I received your letter, and ishtihar means like poster. Badi khushi hoyi ki aap de udam naal Shromani Kavi Bhai Santokh Singh Ji di yadgar qaim hon da prarambhak din niyat ho gaya hai. I'm very happy that you have taken this journey of establishing the birthplace or the yadgar, the place of remembrance of Santokh Singh. I'm very happy that you're doing this because he's a Shromani Kavi. He's the highest poet we have. ਤੇ ਉਸ ਦਿਨ ਭਾਰੀ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਹੈ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਫਲਤਾ ਬਖਸ਼ੇ ਆਪ ਦਾ ਉਦਮ ਸਿਰੇ ਚੜੇ he's giving his blessings that your udam may reach where it needs to be. And then he goes on to say that Kavi Santokh Singh Ji jo panth de sir si shukr hai, I'm very happy, I'm very thankful that the head of our panth, you're making a place of memory for him because oh rin adda hon laga hai. Rin means karja. Who understands karja? Karja means like you take a loan out, you go in debt, right? So Veer Singh is saying that the panth is in debt to Santokh Singh. Is that why? Because we're learning about our gurus through the works he has done. Yeah. So he said that now half of that rin, half of that karja, half of that loan that the community has taken out has been paid back by making this Gurdwara. Bhai Veer Singh also gives a check of 125 rupees to help with the financial needs to build that place. Okay, so Kavi Santokh Singh is born in that area which we looked at, Pind Nuruddin, and there's some information that Kavi Santokh Singh Ji goes to an area which is Buriye, and he becomes a court poet over there, so he gets hired by the Buriye area. Eventually he moves on to the state of Patiala, who the Maharaja is Karam Singh of that time, who hires him as well. So again, remember, he's born during Sikh rule and he dies in Sikh rule. So a lot of the kings of that time are Sikhs, right? So Maharaja Karam Singh appoints Kavi Santokh Singh Ji and gives him a certain amount of salary and a place to stay as well, and he's treated as a royal poet. Okay, now we move on to the most important part, Maharaja Uday Singh. So Uday Singh was the king of an area called Cantal. So this is from the state of Cantal of India. Their own website pays homage to Kavi Santokh Singh, which I found crazy. So this is from their website, just copy and paste it here. The Sikh rulers known as Bhai ruled over Cantal from 1763 to 1843, and they just named down the different emperor over there, the names of the emperors. And they talk about Bhai Uday Singh, who took over the throne and ruled until 1843, which is the year Uday Singh dies, and then at the same time Kavi Santokh Singh passes away as well, 1843. So in Farsi are still safe in museum in Patiala. The splendor of Cantal was topped during that reign. Famous poet Bhai Santokh Singh was the poet in his court. His famous work include, and these are different texts that we're going to talk about now. But it's amazing that the Indian website of Cantal still has, and this is the first page, like you never have to go that far to find it. They still pay homage to Kavi Santokh Singh and recognizing him to be a very important part of Cantal. So Maharaja Uday Singh hires Santokh Singh as a poet laureate in 1825. He's a government funded poet. Yeah, so it's very big, and he creates a few different texts during that time, which we'll analyze a few of them, but we'll just talk about the rest of them. One of them is Garam Ganjani, which we'll look at in this slide today, in the text, in the presentation today. Another one is Balmiki Ramayan. So the Ramayan is popular by two people, Tulsi and Balmiki. Yeah, these are two authors of the Ramayan that are very popular today. Remember, Tulsi Ramayan was actually done by his teacher, Kavi Santokh Singh's teacher, Sant Singh Giani. He had translated Tulsi Ramayan. And Santokh Singh himself has translated Balmiki Ramayan. Yeah. And this was treated as, it's like how we learn, Shakespeare and all these different type of poets today in our courses and stuff. The Ramayan and Mahabharata and all these things are considered to be the highest form of literature that India had. So if you worked on that literature, you're known as a high scholar. That's what it means, yeah? So scholars will do it for fun. They'll translate to show the vidvita, or how much vidya that the Sikhs possess, yeah? So it's like, you're living in America, and you see a Sikh doctor, and we're like, wow, look, he's a Sikh doctor, right? Or you see a Sikh guy in the army, you see a Sikh guy in anywhere, you get proud. Like, oh, these are our people on the stage. These are, in the same way, India largely looks at us as almost like aliens. They don't recognize us as their own people, right? So when you create something that puts you on the stage, when you create something that they know their mind, they know the Mahabharata. When you do something, you translate their work, they're like, whoa, you guys are scholars. Or you guys are smart as well. Well, you guys can do this, then what can you not do, right? So Kavi Santokh Singh had translated Balmiki Ramayan. He had translated parts of the Upanishads and the Vedanta Shastra, which was called the Atam Puran, which is lost. We don't have that today. We do have these two texts. Garam Ganjani has been published. Balmiki Ramayan is being published as we speak. The Guru Pratap Suraj Granth, which is published by Veer Singh himself. This portrait, by the way, is from this book. I'm not going to pronounce because I don't know Farsi like that, but it's a book that contains a lot of portraits of the Maharajas of Punjab at that time, and this is from the Tur collection. Okay, so we're gonna look into a few works that Santokh Singh has done. So there's two type of writing styles. One is prose, one is poetry. Poetry is written as Kav Rachna, and prose is Vartik Rachna. That's what it's called. And oftentimes when you write in poetry, especially 19th century texts, right, 18th century texts, it was in Braj Bhasha, which we just very well seen so up to now. So Kavi Santokh Singh Ji writes a book called Anam Kosh, which is Sanskrit encyclopedia. He writes his Guru Nanak Prakash, which is what he really gets famous for. He writes the Valmiki Ramayan, which also gives him a lot of respect in the court of Cantal, because before he comes to the court of Cantal, he's already written the Nanak Prakash. He's written that in Patiala with Karam Singh. When he comes to Cantal, he writes the Valmiki Ramayana, he gets a lot of praise from Uday Singh. And we'll see a letter that Uday Singh actually writes to Santokh Singh describing how happy he is with his work. And then from there, he gets funding and says he's told to write the Sooraj Prakash, or he writes the Sooraj Prakash. And some prose texts are the Garam Ganjani and the Ata Puran, the Tika, which we don't have today, is lost. The Garam Ganjani, Sooraj Prakash, Nanak Prakash, we'll be talking about that in this slide, in this talk. So this is a letter written by the Maharaja Uday Singh. Farsi was the royal language, so Persian was the royal language of that time. And in this letter, on the top right corner, it says Akal Ji Sahai, and this is a letter by Uday Singh, Raja Uday Singh, to Kavi Santokh Singh Ji and the nearby districts, to let them know that Kavi Santokh Singh Ji is going to be paid, not only this generation, but his generations to follow should be paid from the different income from different villages. This is a translation of that letter, which we won't need to go through because I just gave you the description of the letter. But basically, it just says that Kavi Santokh Singh Ji, I'm very happy with Kavi Santokh Singh's work, the Valmiki Ramayana, and I want all the nearby districts to take out some tax money and put it to a funding for Santokh Singh Ji, not just for his generation, but generations to come. Okay, so we're going to talk about a few of his texts. This is the Garam Ganjani. Garva means ego, hankar, right? And this text was written as a response. It's in response to someone named Udasi Anandakan. So Anandakan, who was from the Udasi Samparda, he writes a commentary on the Japji Sahib. And the commentary of Japji Sahib did not, actually it quite upsetted a lot of people, a lot of Sikhs at that time. His commentary, don't know why he wrote it in that way, but his commentary upset a lot of people. And his major claim was that there's no intelligence to the Japji Sahib. So Japji Sahib it's a Bani that we read every single day. And this Bani, we think of it as just a religious chore to read. Scholars look at this Bani and try to translate it, try to look at different ideas that the scripture is presenting to them. Yeah. So this person said that there's nothing intellectual about the Japji Sahib. Yeah? And this is important for us to know, because today, if we're challenged in the academia field, yeah, what's special about your scriptures, yeah, we might not know what's in our scriptures because we're not part of that, tradition of learning and stuff. But we can see that people of the past had the same dialect with different scholars as well. So his claim was that there's no rhetorical devices used. Ganjani means to break. Hankar, Garab means hankar, ego. Ganjani means to break. He named it Garam Ganjani as a response to Anandakan. Yeah, Kavi Santokh Singh Ji named the translation to Japji Sahib, commentary of Japji Sahib that he provided, this name to break the hankar of anyone that reads it, including Anandakan. So this is a section from that translation, the commentary of the Japji Sahib that Santokh Singh did. I just translated it here. And in the beginning, he writes the reason for creating this commentary. Yeah. And he says, Uday Singh is a very courageous king. He called over me with a lot of respect. And he said this to me. So this is quoting Uday Singh, the Raja, what he said to Kavi Santokh Singh. He says, out of the Gurbani, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the most important is the Japji Sahib. So out of all Guru Granth Sahib Ji, we hail Japji Sahib to be one of the most important Baniya, which is true. The meanings are deep and amazing. And he further on says, create a commentary which showcasing the rhetorical devices. Provide undoubtable translations from your intellect. In this way, the doubters that are here, they can understand. Take away the strength of their intellect. Yeah. So after hearing this, Santokh Singh gets the job and he starts creating this commentary of the Japji Sahib. This is just a portrait from the Janam Sakhiyan. Janam Sakhiyan are texts that hold historical reference to Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's time, like their stories on Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And in certain Janam Sakhiyan, we have portraits as well. So this is a portrait of Guru Nanak Dev Ji being challenged by what looks like maybe some jogis. This is dated 1762. It's from the Tour collection. So in the Garam Ganjani, Kavi Santokh Singh goes through many rhetorical devices because his mission was to find the rhetorical devices used in Japji Sahib. And he lists out all these rhetorical devices. Over 80 rhetorical devices are shown in the Japji Sahib through Kavi Santokh Singh Ji's work. He showcases Japji Sahib as an intellectual masterpiece. Yeah. Quite different than how we might see the Japji Sahib today. Okay, so this is just a section from the Garb Ganjani as well, showcasing how Kavi Santokh Singh would analyze Japji Sahib through categories. He would say like, okay, you reach this sporty here, this stanza here. To understand this stanza, you need to know this background. So he gives you backgrounds. In this scenario, it's about Pakhya Pavapar. And he goes through 4 categories that you need to understand before you understand the word Pakhya. Pakhya means to speak. He's like, okay, you need to understand the 4 types of speech. Yeah, which is para, basanti, madama, bakhri, and he goes through the definitions of that areas of speech. So this is very interesting because even the commentary that's provided in Japji Sahib today, you'll never see a commentary in this depth. Rhetorical devices are out of the picture. Even any devices used in literature are never mentioned. Japji Sahib is just seen as one God, truth is name. And he's without fears, without hate. It's just very monotone. But the way Kavi Santokh Singh presented it is almost like if it's a PhD paper, which that's how he viewed it. Again, speaking of the same stanza, Pakhya Pav Apar, he mentions his knowledge on different languages. As he says Sanskrit, Farsi from Iran, Turki, which is Turkish, Arabic, which is Arabic, Pahlavi, which is from Iran as well, Pashtun, which is from Afghanistan. He mentions that all these languages call for a divine in their own respective ways. And again, this is just translating what the word Pakhya Apar means. This is another extract from the Garb Ganjani, and how he obtains meanings through from deriving. Yeah, and for me, my background is engineering. I'm really big on deriving formulas, and so it's really cool how he did this. He's looking at the Pankti Gunvantya Gunde, the stanza Gunvantya Gunde, and traditionally this is how you'll read that stanza. Nanak nirgun gun kare Gunvantya Gunde. What he does is really cool. He moves the a to the other side, Gunvant a Gunade, which changes the meaning up. Yeah, so he plays with words to give different meanings. Oftentimes, for one stanza, he'll break the stanza in half, and that half of that stanza will have 5 different meanings. Then he go to another 5, and then he'll just break down. So, for example, the Japji Sahib is about 8 angs long, right? Angs is what we don't refer to as pages, we refer to as angs, right? So it's about 8 pages long, right? The Garb Ganjani was about 171 pages. And the reason for that was how in-depth he went through the Japji Sahib. So, Agun means all types of virtues. So, the way he derived that line, he just changed the meaning up totally. From before it was Gunvantya Gunde, that the Creator gives virtues to the ones that have virtues, to the Creator gives all types of virtues to the ones who are virtuous. Okay, so this brings us to one of the most important texts that Santokh Singh had created, called the Sooraj Prakash. I named it the sun that never sets, because Maharaja Ranjit Singh's rule eventually ends. Yeah, in 1840s, 1839, Maharaja Ranjit Singh passes away. With that, the political state of Punjab goes in the air, and the annexation by the British takes over in about 10 years' time. So from 1839 to 1849 is when Punjab is now annexed, and you have the 2 Sikh Anglo wars that happen, and eventually the sun of the Sikh Raj sets. But Kavi Santokh Singh Ji's text, called the Sooraj Prakash, never set. So where does Santokh Singh create the Sooraj Prakash? Remember Raja Uday Singh, right? Raja Uday Singh has hired Santokh Singh. Now, Santokh Singh is given a place to write the text, right? He's given funding for sure, but he's given a place to write as well. Because any scholar, for any job that they have to do, they need an environment, a peaceful environment. So this Haveli was gifted to Santokh Singh. I'm just going to go through what you see in the picture here in a second. That picture on the left side is the picture of that same Haveli. Haveli means building. That Santokh Singh wrote this text called Suraj Prakash, which is, we're going to talk about in a second, analyze it as well. This is a picture from the published Suraj Prakash text by Veer Singh in the Punjabi Pasha community. And on the left side you can see, so actually I didn't post it here, but Veer Singh talks about this text, and I think I have it in the next slide. He talks about how he tries to buy this Haveli 100 years ago, yeah, but it was, maybe the funding was not available by the community and he was unsuccessful to buy the Haveli. 100 years later, this Haveli is now bought, yeah. So 100 years later, this is a picture of this from this year. This is Giani Singh, who is my teacher, and they have, with the support of the community, bought this Haveli where Santokh Singh worked on, and now it's going to become a museum or what have you, for the future to use. And this is in Cantle. Okay, yeah, this is the words of Veer Singh. Uste Cantle ran vasan te chalan de tha, which means where Santokh Singh stayed and wrote the Granth and then also died, passed away. Jithe baith ke edda bhara Granth rachya gaya, where he sat down and wrote such a huge text, because the Suraj Prakash, which text we're going to look into now, is considered a magnum opus, which means a huge epic. Yeah, so like there's about 10,000 pages to that text, and what that text covers is the history from Guru Nanak Dev Ji all the way to Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Yeah, so we'll talk about it in more detail, but just giving you a little trailer. So Para Granth meaning huge Granth, a huge text. Vik gaya te thode arse nu eh sanat ho sakni vi bhul jayegi. So at that time, 100 years ago, Bhai Veer Singh is afraid that our generations to come will forget about Kavi Santokh Singh, because the area, the makan, that Haveli that you just saw, was sold off to other people that were not from the Sikh community, who had no interest of preserving the legacy. शौक है कि उस महान उपकारी दा उसते परिवार ने उसते पंथ ने कोई निशान कायम नहीं रखा. He said, I'm very saddened, Veer Singh writes, Dr. Veer Singh writes, that I'm very upset that the community, the panth, his family did not take interest in preserving his legacy. And this is amazing because remember I said Santokh Singh is a very controversial figure nowadays. A lot of people that think of it as a very controversial figure, they will never know Bhai Veer Singh wrote all this about Kavi Santokh Singh. That Bhai Veer Singh is the one who typed up his work, published his work, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Publication. Bhai Veer Singh has set up a society to publish, which was called Hind-e-Vajir, and through that publication society, Bhai Veer Singh had typed up Santokh Singh's Granth text. Took him about 70 years to type up such a voluminous text and published it. And this is not a picture of the publication. Unfortunately, I could not find the exact picture of the publication, but this is a publication. This is a picture of a different publication. So, published Suraj Prakash for first time 1927, second time revised is 1935. He provides commentary and footnotes. That's Veer Singh on the left side. So Bhai Veer Singh, have you heard about the Singh Sabha movement? Bhai Veer Singh was part of the Singh Sabha movement, right? He was from the Amritsar side. There was two Singh Sabha movements, because Punjab was one big Punjab at that time, right? Lenda and Charda Punjab, Western and Eastern Punjab was one. So Lahore and Amritsar were both in Punjab. Now it's not, right? Lahore is separate. But there was two Singh Sabhas movements, one from Lahore, one from Amritsar. What's crazy is both scholars from both communities respected Kavi Santokh Singh. Today, we don't respect Kavi Santokh Singh because we say that after the Singh Sabha movement, a lot has changed, and we'll cover that in a second. But we say nowadays that we don't respect Kavi Santokh Singh because our modern scholars did not, but our modern scholars did. In fact, it's because of them we have the text of his today. So this is Mahant Sumer Singh, who was he was part of the Amritsar Sahib Singh Sabha. Veer Singh was part of the Lahore then. So Mahant Sumer Singh writes in his own text, right, Gurpad Prem Prakash, in the 1880s, he says there is no Granth, and I guess this is translated, there is no other Granth that's equal to this one. It is a treasure and praise of the Satguru. It's a boat to carry all the Singhs. This is the praise of Sri Santokh Singh, So Sumer Singh writes this in a text in praising Santokh Singh. So I'm just giving you another excerpt of the scholars of that time, what they thought of Santokh Singh. And there's much more, I couldn't include everything. But scholars like Pyara Singh Padam, scholars like Veer Singh and Sumer Singh you heard already. But any book that you pick up on Sikh history today, those scholars, respected Kavi Santokh Singh. So what was the source for his text? Again, remember his text is the history of Guru Nanak to Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And his sources were primarily these things you see up on screen. The Janam Sakhiyan, right? So Janam Sakhi again are Guru Nanak Dev Ji's history. So any history you hear about Guru Nanak Dev Ji, how, any history of their travels, their udasiyan, they all come down from the Janam Sakhiyan. And there's many different Janam Sakhi. That's like a talk on its own. And there's different views on Janam Sakhiyan as well. But that was one of his sources. Then you had the Panso Sakhi, which is not available today by Ramkaur. And we only have about 100 Sakhis out of 500 Sakhis that were once available. Texts sort of by Mani Singh Ji, like the Guru Balas, Sikhandi Pagramala, etc., Gyan Ritavani, and his personal traveling and research. Okay, and there's also some miracles as well, which he notates in his work. He says that, so there's a story that's passed down orally and is based upon his writing here. Orally, the tradition states that Kavi Santokh Singh was not able to find all parts of history. Yeah. There were some certain areas which he could not find. One day, a Singh came to his house and stayed the night. A random person came to his house, stayed the night. Santokh Singh fed him, provided a lot of love for him. When that Singh left the next morning, Santokh Singh finds a bag that was left behind that Singh with a lot of text, a lot of parchiyan, like letters. That was the information he needed. And he quotes this in his text. I found, surprisingly, a collection of different parchiyan, different letters that contained all the history of the Gurus. Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit about the format and the organization. We're almost done here, and then we'll go into Q&A. The format of the text is based around the sun. Yeah, so Sooraj Prakash. Sooraj means sun. Prakash means illumination. Yeah, so the text is called Gur Pratap Sooraj Granth, which means the Guru's Pratap, the Guru's illumination. Sooraj Prakash, the sun-like Guru whose illumination goes throughout the whole universe. Yeah. So the way he divides the text is very clever. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji's stories, which are under Nanak Prakash, are divided by sunrise and sunset, Purbarad, Uttarard, and then when you go into the history of Guru Angad Dev Ji to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, is divided by Ras. So the history of Guru Angad Dev Ji to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji is in the 12 Rases. Ras means like months. Like there's 12 months in a year. So it's 12 Rases which divide the history of Guru Angad to Guru Tegh Bahadur. Then from Guru Tegh Bahadur, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, their stories are divided into the 6 seasons. So in India there's 6 seasons, right? In the West we have 4 seasons. The Sher Rutta and Do An. An means solstices. There's a winter solstice and there's a summer solstice, right? The highest point of the sun and the lowest point of the sun, right? So this is how the text is divided, and it was completed in 1843, just before he passes away. So, height without weight. The scholars at that time were not egotistical. So he writes this in his own Granth, which I think a lot of scholars today should read. He says, Jahan pool mujhte kuch hoi, O Khalsa Ji, if I have made a mistake, Sun Pathakara Ros Nahe Koi, please don't get mad at me. Kirpa Tar Soleho Banai, you do your blessing upon me and you can change whatever you want. Jyon Satguru Sikhan Manapai, as ever it pleases the Sikhs of the Guru, ever it pleases them, you can do whatever you want. This text is yours. Yeah. So a lot of days today, there will be question about how Santokh Singh presented a certain Sakhi or presented a certain story of the Gurus, and they'll be like, wait, that does not realign with the way we see Sikhi today, right? Santokh Singh says, hey, look, Sikho, if there's anything you don't like in my Granth, if there's anything you don't like in my text, here's the keys. You can do whatever you want. You can change it if you want. What author writes 10,000 page text and then says all rights belong to the Khalsa? When you write a book, it says all rights are reserved to the author. All rights are reserved to the author's family. He says all rights reserved to you. He also mentions the need of writing this text. He mentions how the itihas, the history of the Guru, cannot be found in one place. For this reason, around the world I will go around India, I'll go around the places the Guru went to, all the Katha of the Guru, and write it down for the community. This is how he starts out the first ras, the first section of Guru Angad Dev Ji's Katha. So this is a modern portrait of Kavi Santokh Singh. We actually saw this is a re-illustration of the original portrait, which still exists today, is held by his descendants, Kavi Santokh Singh's descendants, but it's a real illustration done by Jatinder Singh. But you can see this is how he looked like, very royal, Kirpan, Qatar on the other side, very surbi, very jangi looking, a mala on his hands, very royal artifacts you can see he's decorated with. About us, we're apart from Basic Sikhi, as you know. Basic Sikhi, like Bhai Supreet Singh had mentioned before, we have a YouTube channel, so you can check us out. Here is my personal Instagram page. There's a website called Six Translation, which is a project of Everything's 13, which is working on translating these scriptures that we talked about today, the texts we talked about today, the 18th century text, 19th century text. You guys can get this off of me anytime.